I'm so glad that you could join me tonight to have this conversation, because I think it's something that's probably going to relate to a lot of people who might be watching this on the Active Monash website. So, I mean, basically, just to quickly introduce us and let everyone know what we're up to with this video, I'm Rochelle. This is Bec. I don't know if I'm pointing at the right screen, but there you go. And that's Rebecca. And
hey guys.
We're all students from Monash University, and we're provisional psychologists. And so you guys, as members of the Monash Aquatic and Recreation Centre, Mark, you've been sending in questions, things that you've been thinking about during COVID-19. And basically, we want to know how you're coping, and we want to see if there are ways that we can help with the knowledge that we have and the kind of things that we're learning about. So the question that we're going to tackle today is, what are some ways that I can stay motivated at home with work, training, and family commitments? And the goal in mind with all of this is just to provide you with some mental health support, and maybe we can think out loud together and come up with some strategies so that we can all do the best that we can during this time, which of course we're all finding a little bit hard. The basic idea with motivation is that it's a thing, a process, or a feeling that drives us to do something else. So that could be to complete a task, that could be even just to focus and to capture your attention. There are things that you'll probably do naturally in your lives without thinking about it actively, that this is motivation, but we do things like we set goals. We set goals all the time. Anybody who's even slightly organized probably incorporates this as a skill into their lives. And we use things like incentives to help keep the motivation going, and so that we don't lose it, hopefully. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail. I know you guys have prepared some stuff to share that I'm really excited to hear about, because I think this stuff is going to be quite helpful. To talk about what motivation looks like now that our schedules have changed, our routines have changed, our training and physical exercise has changed. So what do you reckon, Bec? What is something that you've been thinking about in relation to motivation during COVID-19 that you think could be helpful for people?
Well, and this might be a little bit of left field kind of thing, but I did some research about motivation, and a lot of what popped up was to do with self-compassion, which I know sounds a little bit weird when we're trying to motivate ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, self-compassion and not being self-critical was actually something I found that is really important to keeping everyone motivated.
That's kind of surprising, because I would think that when you're critical, that it's almost I don't know, it encourages you get a bit of that adrenaline rush when you're critical, and you'd think that it would push you to kind of work harder or achieve more, but is that not what the research says?
No, and that's what I thought originally. I was like, you push yourself more and you'll get there, and it's not really how it works, surprisingly. I guess the thing with self-criticism is that it actually makes you more stressed out, because you're being really judgmental, really harsh on yourself.
I feel that.
Yeah. And then you become less motivated.
Right. Yeah.
Less motivated, so it doesn't push you.
No, it makes it worse, actually. Not what we want.
That's so interesting. So when I'm sitting down to do an assignment, for example, something that's at the front of our minds right now as master's students, when I think to myself, oh, I can't believe that I didn't get my checklist done again. You know what? I can't let this happen again. That's just not good enough. Tomorrow, everything that I missed out on, I'm going to add to my plate and do the full list anyway. Is that something that's too self-critical, that isn't actually helping me get through the next day of my commitments?
Totally. The big thing with self-compassion, which is the opposite to being self-critical, is, I guess, treating yourself kindly like you would to a best friend, to a mother. And it's also understanding that, like, we all don't reach our goals, and sometimes we do fail. And it's just, being kind to yourself and not being judgmental when those things happen.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that concept. The concept of like treat yourself how you would treat your best friend. I think that really like resonates, because, we say such awful things to ourselves, and then we think, would I say that to you? Like, would I say, Becky, your assignment was due, why didn't you get it? Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another big thing with self-compassion is that like it actually reduces your stress, and that's kind of the main way it makes you more productive. So you're happier, less stressed, and more productive. It's a win-win, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
know I could really
awesome.
use that, because I think, yeah, I reckon a lot of people would probably feel that too, that bizarrely, even though a lot of us are home more, especially if our work has been moved to home, it's still quite a high stress environment, and there are a lot of unknowns that are out of our control, and you can feel the stress levels just rising. So that's really cool. Be self-compassionate. That's going to be helpful. Rebecca, I think, so did you figure out some ways that this can apply in kind of a really practical sense, or how you can catch this as you're going throughout your day?
Yeah, so what I was thinking about was just really practical scenarios. And, my research was just thinking about my own life, like how I could apply these, notions of self-criticism and self-compassion. And I guess one of the biggest barriers that I feel, and I know is very common right now during COVID-19, is a sense of being overwhelmed, of there's too much to do and there's just, you can't do it all. And so this is actually a really big barrier to motivation, because what happens is when you open up that, for me, when I open up my diary at the start of the day and I see the 5 million things on that diary, the first thing I want to do is close it. I don't want to actually go through it. I don't want to look through the list. I don't want to tick anything off, because I'm so overwhelmed by how much is on there that mentally my mind shuts down. And this is a really common problem, I think, as well, with a lot of people, whether it be, your work schedule, maybe your like family schedule for the day, your kids have activities, there's so much to do, and you just want to lay in bed. And what happens then is, I think that self-critical component also comes in. We start thinking to ourselves, why did I let it get this bad? Why didn't I do something before? Why was I procrastinating? We get really harsh. And that's, like Bec said, even more detrimental, because that pushes us away from our goals even further. It's thinking we've already got the stress of having everything to do. Now we've got the stress of being rude and horrible to ourselves. So you can see how that like really, really decreases our motivation. One way.
It sounds like you're putting yourself on trial. So you have the negative experience of not completing your list for the day, and that stress in and of itself. And then you also have the stress of being the judge and the jury for yourself.
It's just one thing on top of the other, really.
Yeah, and it's such a natural process as well, I think. We do it so naturally without actually thinking about what we're doing to ourselves. So I guess one way to overcome this is like to start making goals. And I know it sounds really cliched, but if you use a framework, in what psychology we call it SMART goals, and this is a really easy framework to help you take that first step and tick the first thing off your list. So what SMART stands for, it just stands for your goals being specific. So for example, if I have an assignment due at the end of this week, which I do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself a task every single day. And it's going to be specific. I'm going to say specifically, read these papers, do this. So the second thing you want it to do is you want it to be measurable. So I need to be able to either tick or cross that task at the end of every day. I need to know whether I'm on track to achieve my goal or not, and I need to pick it up. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure your goals are attainable. So if my goal is to complete my assignment, I'm not going to hope to get my doctorate by the end of the week. That's not attainable. That's not going to happen for me. The fourth thing, the R, is for relevant. You need to be doing work relevant to your goal. So if I want to achieve my assignment, I'm not going to be reading conspiracy theories because it's not going to help me achieve my assignment. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to make sure your task is time-based. So you have to give yourself a deadline, and you have to know, by this deadline, I either have completed it or I haven't. And it's important that if you haven't, you're still nice to yourself.
Well, I reckon that's there's a lot there to sit with and digest, and I'm definitely going to be processing it throughout the week and thinking about how I can incorporate self-compassion, SMART goals, and bring some awareness into my own thinking and see where self-criticism is maybe actually impacting my levels of motivation. Are some limitations to the discussion that we've had, and we've already mentioned that your unique factors are going to play a really big role in how you relate to all of these different concepts, be it self-criticism, self-compassion, or motivation more broadly. And so bear that in mind. You know yourself better than anybody else does. And so your voice is significant, and your thoughts about this matter. And so this conversation is not supposed to be a fix-all. We'd really love it to be a springboard for further conversation, and for further research, which everybody can do themselves, especially now because we have so much time on our computers and access to the internet. Let's use that for some really positive things and ways that we can help ourselves really mindfully. Also, we're going to provide some links to other resources that we think can be helpful, because for some people, motivation may be the struggle, and for others that may be one of many struggles that are really weighing you down and building to that sense of being overwhelmed and exhausted. And if you're really noticing that in yourself, I think we would all encourage you to contact somebody and ask for help. It'd be great to speak to a friend, but it would also be so wonderful to get some professional help if you think that could be useful to you. So we're going to provide some links, including something to the Australian Psychological Society, so that we further information there if you do feel like it goes a little bit beyond just lacking motivation and you think it could be something that's worth discussing with a professional. Well, that's all that we had to talk about this time. We look forward to further questions, and thanks for the chat. See you next time.